You're listening to The Psychedelic Couch. Before we delve into today's episode, which includes conversation around psychedelics, we want to remind our listeners that the use of illicit drugs carries significant risks and legal consequences. Psychedelic substances, including but not limited to LSD, psilocybin, DMT, and MDMA, are classified as illegal in many countries, including here in the UK. The possession, distribution, and consumption of these substances can result in legal penalties, including fines and imprisonment. Furthermore, the use of psychedelics can have profound effects on one's mental and physical health. While some individuals report positive experiences, such as expanded consciousness and therapeutic benefits, others may experience negative effects, such as anxiety, paranoia, and psychosis. These substances can also interact unpredictably with medications and exacerbate underlying mental health conditions. They are also not suitable for anyone under the age of 25. It's essential to approach the topic of psychedelics with caution and responsibility. The views and experiences shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only and should not be interpreted as encouragement or advocacy for the use of illegal substances. If you or someone you know is struggling with substance abuse, we encourage you to seek support from qualified healthcare professionals or local addiction support services. With that said, let's proceed with today's episode, keeping in mind the importance of informed discussion and harm reduction. Welcome, Sophie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So I thought I'd start by introducing you. Sophie Bolton's journey as an ecstatic dance DJ and elemental conscious dance facilitator highlights her deep connection to the transformative power of movement, sound, and expression. With a decade of experience in Europe's dance scene, she has honed her craft creating spaces where individuals can explore their vulnerabilities and strengths alike. In her workshops and retreats, Sophie invites people to embrace their authenticity, recognizing that true strength often lies in the acknowledging and embracing one's own vulnerabilities. Through elemental conscious dance, she facilitates a journey of self-discovery, using music as a tool to awaken the soul and activate the truth within. Drawing from a diverse range of musical influences, Sophie's sound journeys traverse cultures and genres, creating a tapestry of beats that initiate participants to meet their edges and explore their internal landscapes. At the heart of Sophie's work lies the belief that through movement and expression, we can tap into the deepest parts of ourselves, allowing our true essence to shine forth. Within the supportive container of her workshops and retreats, participants are invited to explore what it means to be fully alive, held and supported by the greatest power of all, love.
Beautiful to hear that.
Yeah, so I just wondered if you could just start by telling listeners a little bit about what that means. Tell us about how you use dance in this format, in this way.
I think that the fact that you're, generally speaking, we're growing up in a culture where music and dance plus alcohol, maybe plus drugs, equals reality. And to be blessed with discovering dance, with taking all of those factors out of it, has been the most powerful thing that I've experienced. And not to say that alcohol doesn't have its place, because it's another kind of a social lubricant. It's like, I love the fact that it's been, if you were to bring it back into balance, it's a fantastic way that society is formed, like how people can connect. But sadly, it's obviously got a very Moorish quality to it, so it can numb us and take us away from the moment. So I'd say that dance without that is bringing us into the present moment. So there's something about this dance that is just responding to the beat, as we would have done with the skin, the drum, thousands of years ago. We just would have had that one and different percussion instruments that would have been created out of nature. That the beat is really enough for the body to somehow tap into its own brilliance and its own consciousness. The body has a consciousness. And even to this day, I still have to remind myself, because I get so caught up in my head that I forget. And then I simply do just a little bit of movement in my body, and it shifts everything, and it shifts my breathing pattern. And so that's for me personally. And then to be a facilitator of this kind of dancing that brings people together, it is never a time when it's not, the words magic aren't said at the end of it. Like, that was like pure magic. But particularly, I have to say, when I have been holding these ongoing containers with just women, the the build up of each woman's bodies getting familiar with the other women's bodies in the space weaves together this I think this part of humanity that's what we were doing before we started to, cut off from here down, was just so normal and so natural. It was just dance. I think dance was like going to the co-op or something like that. Was an absolute given, that you knew how to create health and balance with your community to survive. You'd gather under the moon, round the fire. It's not just something that's like, chic and hippie and fun to do. It's actually a real necessity for connection and bonding. So yeah, the women's groups, there's this great connection and bonding, and that's often where I hear the word magic being said. Like, it feels like magic. And it's because yeah, people have landed, these women have landed in this awareness, consciousness of the body that is kind of hard to put words to.
That we've almost, as you say, so rightly lost touch with, that we're so in our head, and actually knowing that this is something that people, have used for traditions for millennia to be able to connect to ground, to kind of heal in community. But somehow it's been lost, or as you say, hijacked by kind of alcohol or late nights out, or it's kind of lost the medicinal quality of it. But it was interesting. There was an article published in February last month in the BMJ looking at the effects of exercise for depression. So it was a systemic review of different forms of exercise, and it came out that moderate walking, jogging, strength training, and dancing were really key. And in fact, one of the lines there, the guidelines for depression ought to include prescriptions for exercise as part of, the holistic program for treatment. And considering, the overuse of antidepressants, or the strain on the NHS, we have that resource in us, right?
Isn't it just insane? I mean, it's not, because we all know pretty much. I'm sure the listeners here listening in, we have entered a time of insanity, and we're all just like finding our way home again, dancing our way home again.
Dancing our way home, yeah.
But the fact that, yeah, that the prescriptions, like, what exercise? No, come on, that's a lovely idea, but no, surely don't you just want this pill?
Well, yes, and I was thinking as I read it, I wonder how many people would sort of go to the doctor and then feel fobbed off by that somehow. That why, you're the doctor here, I want pill, I want some sort of medicine to help. But actually, we are the pharmacy. We have all of those resources within us. It's about tapping into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just also thinking about, I mean, I'm regularly having bouts of quite intense anxiety, and I think it's really good just to be really open about that. And I wish actually I was even more open on social media, and I'm going to start to be, just to bring my truth into the field. Is that I have parts of me that's still waiting to come home to myself as such. So I noticed that I can so easily, that the anxiety is because my head has ruled the show. My coping mechanisms mainly are my head ruling the show. And I'm out there, guiding the light of dance into the kind of this conscious realm, but yet I can be at home, and I can be sometimes really stuck in, really nasty sort of anxiety loops. Literally, this morning I was in one, and I just started moving my weight from my right to my left bum and doing circles in my hips. And I started to come back, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm a moving person. I'm a moving being. I just need to move. So I don't know how you can, I have such passion about wanting to just bring dance to the everyday world. Like, I've had the vision with a friend of mine about getting some funding together to somehow bring dance to train stations and airport lounges when people are waiting, as a form of um, just one way to exercise being around lots of other human beings, and what can happen when you're in this kind of limbo state. Rather than being stressed, you could move your body.
Oh, what a beautiful idea. And I was just thinking actually when we met last year at a friend's flash mob dance outside the UN, the just delight in the people that were driving past. You could see the cheer that watching us kind of dance and watching you DJ. It was infectious on the others and the delegates kind of going in. There was just this smile, there's this energy that we naturally connect to.
Yeah, which if you were in Colombia or Cuba, for instance, would just be like such a natural language.
Yeah, can you tell us more about the history, or if you know any different genres?
So I mean, you can go back into quite a few different. I mean, you can go back to the worshippers of Dionysus. So in a way, that's actually what I think is quite interesting, is hedonism is actually really important. um, because it's like literally losing your head. And if you read, there's a great book called Dancing in the Street. I don't know the name of the author. I could try and find it. It's really great, and it speaks into like where dance was allowed and was really alive and fluent, and then when certain religions came in at different times where it was obviously seen as the work of the devil. But around the sort of ancient Greek times, I think there was a lot of room for wild, like wild, ecstatic expression, and would be most likely based in nature or within, spiritual temples of sorts. Um, so you can go back to there. But the more recent times, so that's just like one example from slightly more ancient times, more recent times, the ecstatic dance originated from the Hawaiians. That's kind of one avenue you can look at. The next one in the most modern day is Gabrielle Roth of Five Rhythms. She really coined the most up-to-date sort of ecstatic dance label. She has a book called Maps of Ecstasy, and within the curve that she created of the five rhythms, which is flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, and stillness. At chaos, when you've gone through these patterns of movement of reality, by the time you've got to chaos, you are in some ways sort of reenacting, or not reenacting, but expressing that kind of hedonism. Because you've in flowing, you've really kind of connected with your feet, and you've staccato, you've met your kind of like body's edges and like what's kind of really piss you off, or you kind of can say your no's and your yeses. And then when you've embodied that, that's when you've got more freedom to just kind of let it all go. So that's where that ecstatic moment can be found. And I don't know if this is exactly true, but because she was discovering all of this over on the west coast of America in the 60s, there was some connection between Hawaii and obviously California, and the really kind of beautiful, accessible, spiritual nature of the Hawaiian people. But that's like a little brief history lesson, what I know of from ecstatic dance. But Gabrielle Roth is really like, but it's interesting because Five Rhythms is creates quite a different experience on a Five Rhythms dance floor to an ecstatic dance. But it's also similar.
So with the five rhythms, do participants kind of move through those five kind of phases? Is it almost like a
Mm.
protocol as you describe it? And I'm imagining music helps to do that, that tracks or brings them up and down through that. Can you just tell us a little bit more about, the journey?
Yeah. Yeah, the music that you'd find with flowing has a kind of a continuous tracks that so within the people don't know this at all who are listening, like any kind of music can be used um for these forms of dance that have the qualities and rhythms to them that help the body to do what they need to do at that point. So the flowing is the idea is to move around the room, connecting with your feet to the ground. It's very simple. It's just like, how does it feel to put one foot in front of the other and just keep moving and let your feet be your guide and let the rest of the body follow your feet. So first of all, you sort of have to kind of will it, and that's where getting into this kind of conscious dance, ecstatic dance stuff for new people is like, you've kind of just got to, you've got to will yourself to get there, and then you've got to kind of will yourself to follow the steps. But then you almost, once you've felt the steps in certain parts of each of those phases, you then begin to find this other thing that takes over. That's what's so, that's where you then talk about spirit and soul. You can't put into words, which is an experience you have in the moment once you've got Gabrielle Roth's, five rhythms kind of play, you've teased yourself into that. So the flowing, is finding your feet, letting the rest of your body follow. And the music for that, I'm not always the best at describing music, but it's slow paced, but with enough rhythm to move your body, and with a kind of smooth nature, so that so your limbs can follow that kind of smoothness. And then when staccato comes in, it's much more, as literally as it sounds, it's much more punctuated. So it's more defined beats, so that you can kind of and your breath pattern will change to that. It's like you can almost like this. And then as you go through those phases, the tempo is building up towards chaos, where you're probably more likely to have kind of dance floor tracks with that you might hear at a club even, or world music with drums that have more of a chaotic beat to them. Well, a 4/4 beat most likely, but there's room to let the chaos happen in between those beats, and to let the kind of fire in your body really rise up and start to sweat and release. Yeah, it's a big part of it. And then after you've gone through that sweat and that release, you come into lyrical, and lyrical by this point, I think Gabrielle Roth speaks of it as something like, because I'm actually not trained as a five rhythms teacher, so it's very important to say that, because there are many, people that have, and they've spent 4 or 5 years of their life training. So I'm more of just, I'm a dancer, so I'm informed by it. And lyrical is very freeing. And the music for that can be anything and everything. Like, could be like a Celtic track with lots of violins, or it could be David Gray, or it could be anything that sort of allows you to just let your feet completely travel around the room, but different to flowing, as in you're more aware of the top half of your body. All the parts of your body are more integrated, so you're kind of, all of your body is moving into it, whereas flowing at the beginning, you're more kind of in the lower half of your body and settling into gravity. And then lyrical, both halves of your body are integrated. And the idea is then, when you've gone through those four phases, you enter into the part that encompasses it all, which is stillness. And stillness, I guess, representing, I think the best way to say it in some ways is that there's electromagnetic frequencies that are kind of running through, through the earth. And our brain waves in modern society are all kind of really fast moving. And by this point, we've landed into all of our bodies. So it's much easier to kind of connect to stillness, which is like ever present and
Mm.
always existing.
The movement has taken you from an alpha down to a beta, almost a brainwave state, because you've had that movement. And I'm curious, when you get to that kind of the peak, do people have big emotional kind of responses? Is there a pattern that you experience as you watch or as you're with people in that space unfold or unfurl?
The only thing that's more expressive in the peak is sound, is raw primal sound. And I mean, in terms of like emotional tear releases, I'd say you see it all. Some people, as soon as they step into the room, are so moved. I often see tears actually coming at the beginning.
Or anger, or just, that kind of
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
get it
yeah, yeah,
out.
yeah. No, it's maybe a bit alarming for people who haven't seen it for the first time, but sort of once you get used to it, that yeah, that primal sound and deep from the belly, because we hold so much in our different organs of our body. So yeah, moving them around that much in that kind of held container, with a good facilitator who you feel safe with, has a kind of certain experience, that it's okay to just be really, you know, closer to what it is to be a human animal.
I was just thinking as you were saying that, with my work as a sex therapist, it's quite interesting how sound, plays a role in that. And often as English people, we can be quite reserved, right? And we do things quietly and we don't want to make a noise, but the need often to just really get into our bodies then allows us to connect to our kind of erotic selves.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because obviously, as you know, that so much of society is our modern society is suffering from trauma around these lower centers, that around our sort of sex area, that no wonder there's such a stigma about, oh no, I can't dance, or oh God, you won't get me on the dance floor unless I've had like 3 beers. Because it's just dance and sex and eros and eroticness and sensuality are really, really close. They're really entwined. And I think that's the thing for me, is it's been a place where I've been able to express my sexuality in a safe way. So, and it's just so tender. But I always just, at the end of every dance that I hold, I just kind of go, wow, like the fact that you made it here is really big bow to that, big hats off for people. Yeah, and in terms of the journey with the music and the choice of music that I choose, and the way that the healing process that goes on when I'm choosing the music, yeah, it does feel like at the heart of it is like it's forming a new relationship to what it is to be a sexual, sensual person,
Mm,
because you can't help not wake up your senses as you move.
mm. And there's something so powerful, isn't there, about that connection between the movement and the release, knowing that our bodies store, our traumas are stored within our system, just allowing it to kind of move and unfurl, or letting the body shake. You kind of starting those certain movements, which then it kind of needs to, and just letting it do its thing, getting out the way, and allowing the body just to take ownership, to just flow and lead.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
find that, when people are new, how do you get their heads out the way? I'm just imagining arriving and you're one of those people that won't dance unless they've had 3 drinks, and
And you've
just
got
they're
your
like,
hands in your pockets.
yeah, hands in the pocket, and watching everyone else. I mean, how do you help soothe, or how do you help contain the space for those people, that those really kind of scared, anxious parts?
Mm. I love those people
Mm.
walking into my dance spaces, because they then inform a lot for the rest of the dancers. Because I've always liked that saying I've heard in the yoga world: every time you step on the mat, you're a beginner. You know, like for everything, we're always, every moment is a new possibility and a new fresh moment. And um, so that person that's come there with their perceived or how other people might perceive them, I perceive them as of looking awkward, is exactly what the medicine can be for the rest of the room. And therefore, I would just, so yeah, it's always finding a fine balance, because you have a mixture of different experiences coming into the room, because you also have people that are quite seasoned and don't want to have too much direction. But at the beginning, basically at the beginning of a dance, I would just give as much direction as possible um, to just keep it really, really simple, and feel the ends of their fingertips. And what is it like just to sort of shake off your fingers as if you're shaking off flour after baking, just like that. And then be curious. The word curious is a really good one. Just be curious. What can you feel any movement coming up into the rest of your body? And the main number one thing is, which is that flowing part of five rhythms, is as a collective, as a whole group now, we're all going to leave the spot that we're on. We're all going to just walk around the room. And as soon as you start walking your one foot in front of the other, then you're not in your head so much. You're just going on a walk, but you're going on a walk through the space. And there is no obligation to look at anybody as you're passing them, because as you know, if you might be feeling quite unsafe. So to have to sort of be in this kind of spiritual woo-woo state of like, I've now got to stare at everyone in the eyes as I walk past them and beam positive energy. So no, you can do whatever you want. You can look down at the room, you can completely ignore that person, and it might take you 3 times or 4 times to come back to this weird hippie dancing stuff. And by the 4th time, you kind of got some of these instructions that, okay, maybe I might not just stay right there in the corner all the time. Maybe I might just move my feet just a little bit to that other bit of the room. And then it's as simple as actually changing the orientation of your body just makes a difference to where your head is, and stops you from looping around in your head like, oh my god, why did I come here? This is so, I feel like I'm 3 years old again, I'm really scared, or whatever. Yeah, just finding ways. Mainly it's just feet and shaking and body part awareness.
You mentioned eye gazing there. How much of the dance is encouraged eyes closed or eyes open? What difference?
Oh, well, that's a key
You
one.
thinking?
Sorry, yeah. Obviously, yeah, you can some people's, but yeah, take a year maybe not to open their eyes. And that's tricky, because when your eyes are closed, then you really do just, that person does stay in their corner of the room, and that's fine. Like, all the instructions given are suggestions. They're not like you have to leave the room because you're not moving your feet. So yes, you thank you. Eyes closed. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, eyes closed can possibly be another form of avoidance as well, but like avoidance from connecting out. But as we've just are talking about, if if you've been through a lot and you've been traumatized by someone telling you you're shit at dancing, or your mum when you were 6 laughed at you, and that was it. There's something in your subconscious that just went, not doing that again. But you've kind of aged 38, brought yourself to a dance floor, and you're like being really brave. Then yeah, you close your eyes as long as you need to. Absolutely, because it's so, yeah, it's very threatening to the kind of primal part of the brain, isn't it? To feel like someone's looking at you.
Yeah, and I suppose we have a different experience, right? With eyes closed, you're really in your internal world in a different way to eyes open, where so much of your energy is focused on processing our visual experience. So maybe it's both out, maybe people kind of both and at different points in the journey, just checking in, what is it that I need in this moment, going in or connecting outwards. Tell me about, I mean, how does ecstatic dance kind of promote self-expression and authenticity?
Mm. um well, as I'm like umming and thinking, which is I'm just thinking about all the different flavors of ecstatic dance that there are around the world. There's just so many tribes. And I think that's the thing, is I think we are naturally so tribal, and there are different forms of expression that I see in ecstatic dance scenes. There's one that's I yeah, there's that ability to I think just because there's no words, the guidelines are there's no words, there's no shoes, there's no cameras in the space. Um, so you're set up with this safe container. What I was about to say about tribes was just I was thinking about self-expression in terms of like what people wear and how they kind of come to it, and how they feel like they belong in it. And yeah, there's all kinds of different flavors of that. There's kind of so for instance in hot countries there's like Bali, there's a big scene, and a lot of people meet ecstatic dance for the first time in Bali, and they're in like big open air very beautiful shacks, maybe looking out over a stunning vista, and you've got a huge amount of humidity and you're sweating a lot, and yeah, you're on holiday or you're on travels and you've come across it and it's like whoa. Or for some people it might be like it might be not what they want, because it tends to have a lot of very bare-chested men, tattoos, like a lot of young people who are really fit. But I guess I don't want my things is even within those scenes you get like all intergenerational, you get um people from all different countries and all different backgrounds, so it's like there is this fantastic kind of mesh of peoples that come together. um so in Bali, I just say when I see pictures I see sometimes predominantly pictures of kind of very beautiful people, and I always think, oh, I don't want that to go out there, because it's not just for the young beautiful people, it's for anybody.
Mm, mm,
um so in terms of it promoting self-expression, um just having those guidelines, they're so simple but they're so powerful, and they could be very weird for the first time, and they can come across as like, oh my god, can be judged for. And as I'm speaking, that's just me actually judging it, because I'm so passionate, as I keep saying, about it just being something that's a bit more normal and not just this like kind of exotic
yeah.
thing.
But I suppose it does kind of create communities, and in any walk of life, you have kind of your sub communities within that. Um, but that it ultimately it is for everyone.
Yeah.
What are some of the misconceptions?
I even the word ecstasy,
Mm,
for some people it's like it's really it clicks in, and they're like as I say, they go to Bali and they find ecstatic dance and they're just like, ecstatic dance, wicked, and they kind of work out that they can go and find an ecstatic dance anywhere in the world. um but there are some people that I just there's well not some there's like a I reckon 80% of the population that don't really know about it, and if you were to hear about ecstatic dance, then what would that perception be? um Possibly a little off-putting, a little like, oh, does that mean I've got to really be like really ecstatic? Because actually it's not. It's actually there for you to bring, as you read in my bio, to bring that that form of strength, actually being quite messy and vulnerable, and you know not having to wear sexy hot pants to go, just
mm, mm.
wearing your tracky bees.
And potentially taking you to places or emotional states that aren't ecstatic or
No.
positive. I remember reading in one trial, um, one of the participants said, after one of the psychedelic trials, why on earth do they call this stuff ecstasy? Having gone into the darkest parts of his psyche, it's not all the high positive emotions that one experiences, right?
Mm,
We
mm.
We are all of it.
Yeah, actually, and that makes me think of the word love, and how do we perceive love? And like you think of comedians that have taken the piss out of the spiritual scene, as in Peep Show and Rainbow Rhythms. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but it's like, it kind of like mimics the sort of like, oh, we're all so free and there's so much love, and and there is that kind of, that does come out a bit through some of this ecstatic dance scene. Like, it can come across like that, but actually exactly the same way love as a force is fierce, and it's also very beautiful and soft, and it gives you warm fuzzy feelings in your heart, but it's also brutal as well. The movements that come through your body as you respond to this kind of thing called love, this energy that's running through your body, those movements aren't going to be all like extended yoga poses and Tai Chi moves. They're going to be like, your face is like, snot might be pouring out your nose or whatever. It's such an interesting one to kind of delve into, because there's what the body wants to do. Sometimes when people are having sex, it's like not sexy what comes out. It's like, big primal sounds that don't adhere to pornography sounds. Yeah,
No, it's messy and dirty, and just as the way we came into this world, it's kind of yeah, it offers a place for exploration to go into all of those parts of our psyche.
Mm.
How important, I'm thinking about that journey, how important is intention setting, at the start of a journey? What?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm having a kind of, thanks for catching that one, because that's magic. Yeah, intention, creating an intention is king. It's like, it's you're setting a kind of spell, in a way, for something to happen. Like, you're sending a little message to your body or to the universe, and you have to just understand that you aren't always going to get exactly what you asked for, but it's just in the pure fact that you're setting an intention to, maybe, that be more loving to yourself through this dance, and just see what arises, is really definitely very powerful.
And do you ever work with other practitioners? I mean, do people use the dance as a therapeutic modality, a little bit like where I started with, how it could be used as a prescription, as part of a wider healthcare with certain mental health conditions? Do you see that happening, or are there other practitioners that you work with
Yeah,
holistically?
I haven't myself worked with, like, say, with the NHS, and I would love to. I mean, my closest to it is coming from a background of working with children with special needs as a yoga teacher. I've got a real passion for working with people with different abilities, and I haven't quite. I'm really, that's my next thing. Is I know at some point that's what I'd like to bring in, especially like wheelchair users, with say with cerebral palsy, and like seeing what's available, within a space to bring in chairs and move around. But anyway, that's slightly different to what you've asked. For like anxiety and depression, I mean, it's a chronic symptom, isn't it, within our society? So a lot of people are coming in with that. But no, I haven't specifically worked with one group of people. It's been the whole mix of people. I know one friend who is working with children with autism. To adapt that to that population of people is another thing as well. Because really, you kind of want to engage certain populations of people like that, probably more with popular music and music that people can kind of hook into. So it's an interesting one. Most of the music that is played with an ecstatic dance, only one or two tracks have that hookable thing in, like remixes of well-known tracks I sometimes put in. Like I had a Beatles track come together in a kind of dubstep, dirty dubstep track that's load of Bristolians last weekend loved, because they love a bit of like grime and drop bass. Um, but you know that if you're taking people on a deep journey, that if you bring in a well-known track, suddenly they're snapped out of it. But yeah, for people who are, like wherever they are on the autistic spectrum, they just probably want to know when, Lovely Day comes in by Bill Withers, or, something that's feel good. I don't know, there's such power in music. There's so much choice in it.
So much power. And I mean, when I asked that question, I was almost thinking about how wonderful it would be as a sex therapist to really utilize this in my work. When you're working with individuals or couples that are very in their head, really encouraging them to get back into the body, or to do, to create that space together as a couple to be able to dance and then explore, as you said, getting into your kind of sexual space, into connection, really noticing, the erotic experience through the movement, through the touch. Yeah.
Yeah, and what stops that? Or if that was a suggestion that you made, yeah, you could possibly come up as one of the individuals in that couple would be like, no, I'm not doing that. Because I think it's just tragic that there's something, especially in England. Well, I think it's just deeply ingrained in us. We've been like these big sort of warmongering conquerors, that we've either been like the leaders in it, or the the workers of it. Um, there just hasn't been any room for a long time for I don't know, all of everything that's to do with patriarchy, that just just stops us from being aware that we have these hips and this bum. And
Or that kind of needs to disconnect us from the moment we're born, from the moment we go to school.
yes, that's the thing. And what the revolution it takes for all of us doing our little bits of work here and there to normalize what is so needing to be normalized.
Would you be able to share anything from your journey, or any particular people you've worked with that you think is really powerful to almost illustrate this healing journey or the power of dance?
For me, it was, which I'm really glad, it's where I decided to go. I didn't, and I went to work with a woman called Samantha Sweetwater, who's in California. And I just love the where she had us trainees come to, which was on the borders of California and Oregon. And it was in on permaculture land that has been permaculture, biodynamic, organic for decades. It's in this kind of area of the world where very long-standing meditation retreats happen, and sort of all the old names from the 60s, and it's just a very kind of densely well imbalanced kind of area of the States that I went to. And we danced every day in a yurt for like 6-7 hours a day with the elements, and deeply embodying earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And I so honestly would say that my biggest teacher is through this fiery, wonderful power that Samantha had. She's not teaching. I was lucky to be like one of 2 cohorts that came out to work with her. And she's now kind of moved on into working with other kind of medicines and other kind of intelligent stuff. Yeah, spiritually intelligent stuff. That's my way of putting it. And it's just nature. Apart from Samantha, it's just simply nature. And yeah, as I say, like being in a round structure made of wood on a wooden floor with windows open to the land, and such healthy land, and doing a sweat lodge doing halfway through, was incredibly powerful. It was actually on my birthday, and also spending a day on a sit spot in nature, just being with a tree or whatever insect was near me or whatever it was. All of that within 16 days. I honestly came back transformed. Um, I I literally haven't stopped since 2014. I haven't stopped. And where I come most alive, which is since the pandemic. So the pandemic again was another great teacher because it stopped us getting together. And someone amazingly a philanthropist gave me money to buy 50 silent disco headsets. And I then was able to gather people together in nature, and like it gave that gift of reconnecting to nature again, which was like made absolute complete sense to my body, and obviously to everyone else's who really needed
Yeah.
to get together. Um,
Wow.
and that's what really brings me alive, and that's kind of my most alive. That's what's most alive in me at the moment and it's tricky because obviously being in the Northern Hemisphere, we have to kind of wait until about May. Although it is possible to do it in the winter if there's a sauna, and I have a friend that I've been doing on one or two dances with a sauna, which is amazing because then you can kind of heat your body up and carry on moving in nature.
Mm.
But the most sweet and simple teacher of all and so powerful is nature. Yeah, the elements.
And the wisdom that that brings. And getting out dancing in the rain, you know, again, we were so sort of closeted, right, in our warm homes that so what, it's raining, doesn't matter what's going on out there, get out and be in nature. I
Yeah.
remember I must have been about 9 or 10 and I came home from school one day and it was pouring with rain, and just this impulse to go outside and stand, you know, in my uniform, and my mother just let me go. I remember it vividly. It was just amazing. When was the last time I chose to do that? You know, it's so
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
It's so exciting when we just, you know, get dirty.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's that again, and again, that's another key for me. My biggest teacher is my inner children. And I was holding dances for families, letting the 3-year-olds in the space lead the space. And it's just wonderful, just literally doing exactly what a toddler is doing. So that kind of, stare into space for a bit, and then they're like, and then everyone in the room is doing this. And then they like stop, and they might be like, they look at their thumb for a bit, and everyone's looking at this. And then they're off again doing whatever. So
Wow.
yeah, so nature for me, what makes the most sense is nature and like childlike essence expression that is available to us because we still are
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. I was doing it last night actually with my daughter. She dances, I copy. But then when she started cartwheeling, I was like, okay, I better stop now. And in fact, she did the splits both ways, which I didn't obviously
Both
attempt.
ways, yeah.
Just
Oh,
found
I'll stop
intrigued
there.
of it. Yeah, I'll stop. Okay, brush your teeth.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you notice you do. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. It's almost like, let's shut it down now. It's fascinating. Sophie, what question have I not asked that you wish I had or that I should ask? And how would you answer it?
I mean, we sort of touched on most of it, but like what I guess because of my work, I DJ, someone coined it as I DJ for I don't want to take offense from this. Like I have my spiritual DJing and then my toxic DJing and my non-toxic DJing. So I play for weddings and 60th and 80th. And I guess I want to sort of say is it doesn't matter whether you're drunk or high or not or really pure and you juice every day and you do your yoga every morning, whatever you're into, just as long as you're dancing, that's the main thing. So for me, I'm now noticing straddling both those worlds. I'm like, they're both so important. Um, and dancing and music brings out the best in people. generally speaking. And if there's someone that, you know, is troubled and has gone over their own edge, you know, they can be kindly removed by a kind bouncer, you know, or someone that's being really inappropriate. And that could be something that, you know, that could be another conversation to have, is like, are there people on these ecstatic conscious dance floors that can be predatory? Yes. Also on at clubs, you know, we're just part of a human race of different shades of light and dark, and some people get consumed by their stuff. And are if they are showing predatory signs, and there are, for instance, say, I don't want to like genderize it too much, but it might be that there's a predatory man and a woman that feels vulnerable. It's pretty obvious to see it, and I haven't had to deal with it myself, and it's hard. It would be hard to deal with in the moment unless it's really obvious behavior. It would, and it's an interesting one, but I think because my classes that I hold are quite contained, I know who's coming. But if you go to a bigger ecstatic dance floor, like say, like I mentioned a few times, say Bali, where there's 200 people. I mean, I play for London, and I play for two dances in East London that are around 150 people, and it's so rare that you get someone being predatory. It really requires a team, and there are teams in the ecstatic dance world where there is someone that's a well-being advocate, and so at the beginning of a session, that person is signposted, and so the whole circle can see that Matthew is the well-being advocate. And so if you feel like someone isn't respecting your boundaries, you can go to them, and then a conversation could be had. So I rarely see it, but obviously you do see it when that behaviour is in a club in London. You know, sadly, you do get predatory men, maybe women, I don't know, or them.
And what would your advice be if someone wanted to dip their toe in, you know, kind of a newbie to try it? What would be your advice, or where's the best place to look to go?
I think that if you're in London, Ecstatic Dance UK London is a very warm and welcoming scene. It's in a venue that's been going for 5 years. It's really got its roots, but it's not cliquey, and none of them really are. But I have a particular fondness for Ecstatic Dance UK. It's where I really sort of started playing about 6 years ago. And Five Rhythms, I mean, you can access Five Rhythms classes, which are, there's something about them, they can be very very well, like really held and gentle. So if you know you want that feeling of being really well held, I would find a good Five Rhythms class. And there's in London, there's so many good ones. Depends where you are, depends who's listening. Bristol has all sorts of conscious dance sessions going on, ones that are kind of entwined with conscious sexuality as well. And in most major cities in England, you'll find an ecstatic dance scene, even in Wales, even in Cornwall. And just go for it. Just you know, go along, and you really will feel free to be as bold or as awkward as you like. You should feel pretty welcome.
And looking ahead, what do you envision the future of ecstatic dance to be, and its role in promoting holistic well-being?
I like the thought of it being on that prescription list with the NHS as being a form of positive exercise for depression and anxiety. There, I would love for there to be a pocket of government money to provide spaces to dance, because one of the things is finding venues, and it would be fantastic if the minds of those custodians of, say, old churches, church halls, could open their minds to this being another form of kind of prayer, really, or prayer and worship may have too strong a religious connotation, but in a sense, that's what dance is doing. It's like going to Sunday school or going to church on Sunday. Many of these ecstatic dances do happen on Sunday morning. So it would be fantastic to continue to see more and more of this popping up regularly. And so many people are training as ecstatic dance DJs and facilitators. And I think the more the merrier, to fill as many of these, you know, amazing spaces that obviously in the winter we need, but then in the summer or spring, summer, is to what my vision would be is, because it's also unpredictable, the weather, is for those wonderful stretch tents to be placed on pieces of land around the countryside everywhere with ample parking, so that people can just continue to gather knowing they've got shelter and access to nature. So any of the big landowners, which we know there's many in England, could open, you know, just a couple of acres of their 20,000 acre estates to this. That's my vision.
Oh, that would be amazing. That and the airports. I mean, that would be life-changing.
Yes, that and the airports and train stations. Yeah, that's my vision. And also a little bit like what we were doing when we met with Matt Mellon at the sea.
Dance for the Oceans.
Dance for the Oceans.
Yeah.
Yes, for the delegates that were coming to make a decision on shipping. That was it. On the usage of oil and shipping and polluting of the sea is I love the kind of where performance meets. I'm a self-confessed I like to be watched when I dance. It inspires me. I'm a kind of natural performer. So yeah, I do love the pop-up events. I remember one at Paddington Station about 20 years ago. I just turned up on the main platform there, and someone had organized one, and it was the iPods were out, and everyone just had like earphones to iPods, and I had Fatboy Slim, and everyone just danced for 5 minutes to a couple of their own tracks, and there was like hundreds of people. That's just, I love that. I want more of that.
Yeah. So much fun. And just being in that community, having that shared experience, it's so powerful. Sophie, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today, and so fascinating to hear all about your work. Where can people find you if they want to come and see
Well, my name is Sophie Bolton, so my website is .co.uk, sophiebolton.co.uk, and there's some quite nice archives in there from last summer of all the dances that happened by rivers, and a few years ago on Neolithic sites. And yeah, I'm hoping to actually, I must ring a woman today who's got a beautiful bit of land down in Dorset, and she's really interested about doing dances on Neolithic sites because she lives near Ken Abyss. I can't pronounce it very well. One of those chalk drawings in the earth. Is that a man with a penis? I think. Yeah. Or a tool of some sort. Anyway. sophiebolton.co.uk or Sophie Bolton on Instagram, and ecstaticdance.org shows you everything that goes on worldwide. And as I've mentioned, Ecstatic Dance UK London. Just follow me on Instagram, and I can let you know about cool events that are coming up.
Amazing. And I'll put click-throughs on the show notes, so people will have that information there. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Psychedelic Couch. For more episodes, please follow me on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts, and find me on Instagram at The Psychedelic Couch and at Claire Faulkner Therapy, where I will be keeping you up to date on the latest episodes and information surrounding all things therapy, psychedelics, and expanded states.